Hey guys, long time no talk. Today's weather is beautiful, but I feel like overwhelmed because I have so many ideas, so many thoughts came to me, and then it's hard time to remember what I've been thinking. But fortunately, I did put it down in the draft of the book. So, but here I was just saying that I've been thinking about the key features. I come up with the 10 means like two hands, right? 10 pillars or 10 principles that in the Schumpeterian growth theory, and then first, starting from a process of arrival rate, and also something that you may not notice that, the theory, the model, the model, assume that individual companies make their decisions, not the social planners, but decentralized innovators decided to put money, put the resources into innovation, into R&D, and then in order to get the monopoly profit. Notice this has to be individual companies because only individual, if the monopoly, strictly speaking, monopoly just one winner, others all loser, right? To a certain extent. So monopoly means that you have exclusive profit, or sometimes they call the rent. And then so that's why it's very important to recognize that. The other thing is that when we talk about the innovation arrival rate, it's also we're only talking about the winners. Some the failed, if the innovation is failed, it doesn't budge, doesn't move the market, it doesn't get you the monopoly profit, that doesn't count. It's basically winner takes all, losers lose it, everything. So those kind of things, some other things, but here I ask myself a question that what is the best entry point given those like 10 principles, the ideas. The 10 principle, by the way, is not even exhaustive because there are more ideas. For example, I did not list the inverted U curves. That's another big ideas from the ANH model. I ignore that. So it's not exhaustive, but even though, you know, not incomplete list already, we feel already overwhelmed. So, what do we get started? What is the best entry point for constructive critique? The whole idea, for me to doing this, I'm not even a professor, I'm not but as someone who really interested, and also I believe that I'm capable of make some contributions, even though I'm not, I don't have the title, I don't have the credibility or credit or whatever by the traditional views. I still believe that I can make some contributions, but here is it. I after thinking intensively, I decided to pick up one thing as the entry point. That is the monopoly rent, monopoly profit. Why? For one thing, that the monopoly rent is a consistent, one of the most consistent theoretical point, starting from Schumpeter himself all the way to ANH, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is that because the monopoly rent serves as the triple functions. Number one is the goal function, means that you do the innovation for the only purpose. The only goal is to get the monopoly profit. Otherwise, why bother, right? That's one thing. The second role that is played by the monopoly rent is that it is also the driver, the incentive, right? Without the monopoly, again, you lost your incentive to do the innovation. right? And then the third one is that the monopoly rent is the only path to realize utility, to realize the value. You don't have no other ways of doing this. Knowledge, learning knowledge, consumer welfare, and that's all secondary because without the monopoly rent, without the monopoly profit, no companies would invest in R&D. So the only driver, the only thing that in their head, the only goal, the only driver, the only path is through the monopoly rent. That's why it's so important that we have to understand it. So given this and plus, the consistency, right? And then, let me see, let's repeat that. One is the consistency, theoretical construct in all the Schumpeterian growth theory. Number two is the triple role played by monopoly. Number three is that we have to, it leads to zero sum game, you know. Why? Because again, it's a part of the nature of the monopoly rent. Monopoly means that you have an exclusive game, winner takes all. So that means if everybody has that monopoly rent in mind, then that means you have a zero sum game because people are thinking about the same thing. So that's like in reality, if you have a diversified preference, if you have a diversified goal function, if you have a diversified incentive and driver and diversified paths to the success, then you have a diversified competition. So that's why I spend in the AI chatbot, it's everything happens fast. I spend like 30 minutes debating with the ChatGPT. ChatGPT insists, because anybody become the Nobel Prize winner, and then ChatGPT also impacted it. They were, you know, finally I was able to convince that the chatbot that what is behind pretty much a lot of things. It's a monopoly rent. So if you look at the ANH model, you see like a beautiful inverse U shape, right? Inverse U shape basically look like a turtle back. You have first you have the horizontal you have a competition, the vertical you have an innovation, and they show some beautiful picture to show that as innovation goes up, you have innovation, but then you keep going innovation, and then you have tapered off, the innovation tapered off. So they explain that they have a very beautiful theory, mentioned that you have something called escape competition effect, and then you also have a Schumpeterian effect. So they use that to explain that. So the overall innovation is basically weighted average between these two forces. Escaping competition. Basically, you are in the blue ocean. You are the only one there, and everybody else is like struggling, fighting with each other in a red ocean. But you are the only one, so you can escape the the competition. Of course, it's very important for you to remember that given the creative destruction, that monopoly rent will not last long. You have to. It's like basically, the monopoly rent is like a lightning house. And then because of light, you attract a lot of bees and the flies and the insects, all attracted by the same thing. So that's why you can never have a long lasting, or it tend to be not long lasting profit monopoly rent. So that's why the chatbot had hard time to accept my idea, that really behind the inverted the U shape, it's really the same thing because what is a what is frontier firms or laggard. They're all looking for the same monopoly rent. That's why that's the thing that explain their behavior. Whether they bother to neck and neck to compete with each other, or whether they just basically give up. What is behind this is the same thing, monopoly rent. So I finally I was convinced, and then ever since then, chatbot has been very positive about my my thinking. So I think that set a good story. Let's stop here.